First up, though, let's talk to Anna Firth. She's Conservative MP and she's a member of the Education Select Committee. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for joining us. I mean, look, this was worthy of, yes, Prime Minister, yes, Minister. It was worthy of the thick of it, Amanda Iannucci. This was an absolute disaster PR-wise for Gillian Keegan. Some Tory MPs are telling some newspapers, they think that she's, that's basically her job will be axed. Eventually, she's going to be on borrowed time from now on. But I was wondering whether you agree.
Well, look, this was clearly an off-the-cuff, unscripted comment.
I hope so.
Of course, she's apologised quite rightly. I get listening to it. It sounds to me as if she's actually saying that her civil servants and the government's been working very hard. I didn't interpret it as her wanting personal praise, but obviously she's apologised for those comments because actually they are distracting from the very important issue that we were discussing in the House of Commons yesterday. She was at the dispatch box for over an hour. Answering questions and explaining what the government is doing on this. I really think it's important, Julia, that we keep a sense of proportion. I do have a school in my constituency in Southend West, which has this rack in it and which is currently closed, and they're working incredibly hard to get that school open. But I think the language we use around this has got to be is very important. At the moment, we know there's 156 schools affected. That is under 1% of the total number of 22,000.
And they are, it's not all the entire school. Some of them, most of them, I think we understand, it's just a building or a building too. I do accept we need to keep it in proportion.
Well, because the thing is, we are talking about young children. A number of these are primary schools, and we don't want children being scared to go back to school, thinking that the roof is going to fall in on them, because that is not going to happen. And what the government...
Well, hold on now up. That's easy to say. I mean, odds are it won't. But odds are you're not going to be in a horrific crash on a motorway, but you still wear a seatbelt because it might. I mean, at the end of the day, we don't know which roof's going to come down.
Which is exactly why the government's taking this action, because obviously there was a problem with a school, and because we know this rack is typically in roofs. So that is exactly why the government is taking this cautious approach. It's exactly why last spring they wrote to all schools, surveying all schools, and 95% replied, leaving 5% who still have not replied. So of course the government has to take a cautious approach to this, but we just have to keep a sense of proportion.
Okay, no, I do accept that. Do you think she has a point, Gillian Keegan? Look, no, I mean, I think the National Audit Office boss has a very good point to make when he says, this is Gareth Davies, he said basically the spending watchdog for government, said the government is basically taking a sticking plaster approach and neglecting the unflashy job of keeping buildings in usable condition, having to waste money on emergency repairs. This would be across the board, hospitals and every other building as well. And when it comes to local councils and pothole repairs, and we've got the same issue, is that actually, Gillian Keegan was basically saying, as I understood it, look, this has been on the cards for decades. Labour governments and other Tory governments and Tory education ministers didn't deal with it. I'm dealing with it, and my department's dealing with it, and basically, the music stopped, I'm left with a hot potato and I'm dealing with it and I'm getting blamed for it and my department's getting blamed for it, but this has been around a long time and everyone else has passed the buck.
Yeah, well, what I would say as a backbench MP, Julia, and as a member of the Education Select Committee, is that we are always campaigning for more money for education. And of course, I'm campaigning for more money for my schools in Southend. So last year, we did see an extra 3.5 billion going into the education budget. So spending per pupil has now gone up by £520 per pupil since Labour were in power. But now what I want to see us focus on is that capital programme, because yes, I have got primary schools in my patch, Fairways Primary School in particular, that I am campaigning for to be rebuilt. Now there is work going on. I've had money for another primary school, which I'm very pleased about. But yes, what we all saw on our television screens in COVID in China, hospitals being built within a week, or thereabouts. So I think that this is the spur we need now to really focus our attention.
I've got to be honest with you. You try getting a builder. I mean, think about, totalitarian governments. They don't have issues with people objecting from the RSPB for any planning, do they? We were going to be, hoped we were speaking to the Schools Minister Nick Gibb. He's now pulled out of the interview. I think his staff say he hasn't got time, which is slightly frustrating given that it was committed to, but Nick Gibb is not going to be on the show. It was supposed to speak to him in a couple of minutes' time, but he has been saying this morning, look, that the government, the Department for Education had actually asked for funding from 2020 onwards to rebuild 200 schools a year, and the Treasury only agreed funding for 50 schools a year. That tallies with actually what the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, said, who of course was made Chancellor in 2020, did that spending review, of course, just before we saw the COVID hit, then everyone went into crisis mode. But he has said, he provided the funding for 50 schools to be rebuilt. But many are saying, the Labour Party is saying, look, actually, but that's austerity spending from 2010 onwards, and actually, we needed far more money to be spent. So even the Department for Education's defence, it kind of, exposes that the government has not spent enough money on what was a necessity.
Well, what we know is that only 180 new schools were delivered in 6 years during Labour's Building Schools for the Futures programme. And already we've got 400 schools in progress under the Conservative Schools Rebuilding programme.
Wait a minute, can I just double check? Is this the same as the new hospitals as well, where actually it's just a refurbished wing and is being called a new hospital? Or is it an actual whole new school? It was a car park and now it's a school.
No, because I have a school in my patch, a Blenheim Primary School, which is going through this programme. So we
is it a new school? Was it a rebuilt school that already existed?
The school is there. What
so
we need?
It's not a new school.
No, but I didn't say it was a new school, Julia. What I'm saying is that
you said at Labour for 8 years, 118 new schools were built. I mean, this is the thing. This is where us voters get fed up. If someone says I've got a new car, they don't mean I've changed the tyres on the car I've had for the last 5 years.
If you've got a school which needs to be rebuilt and you
say you've refurbished a school. Don't say you've built a new school.
Look, what I'm saying...
There are no new school places. There was a school. There's now a refurbished school. That is not a new school.
Well, the facilities are new, and that is what is important for our children. They do need to be in classrooms which are fit for purpose, and this government is committed.
But it's not a new school. It's not adding an extra school, is it?
I take that point completely.
But you understand why voters don't trust a bleeding word that politicians say unless they think they're off mic and they're swearing, which I really want to do right now.
Well, look, I certainly don't want to confuse your voters.
No. It's not a fault in us. It's not a fault in me or my audience that we just don't understand because we're a bit thick. We know what the word new means, the same way we know what the word woman means. We know what words mean. And when politicians say we're building X number of new schools or X number of new hospitals, and we can see with our own eyes they're not new because there's been a hospital or a school there for the last 50 years, we know, we're not confused, we know we're being lied to.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Julian, and language is incredibly important. But what I think Nick Gibb was saying earlier is that you always bid for more money to build or refurbish more schools than you actually get. And 50, my understanding is that he was saying that they bid for 200.
They only got 50, and therefore that wasn't enough.